Some pretty major leaks about Call of Duty Black Ops Gulf War, which is rumored to be the title for COD 2024, has just released, and although these leaks are primarily about campaign, they actually do affect multiplayer, zombies, and even possibly Warzone in a lot of ways, and we're going to be discussing that in this video. I'm just going to be talking about what the leaks actually are and how I personally feel about them. Now, these leaks are coming from Insider Gaming, specifically from Tom Henderson, who has been a very known leaker in the Call of Duty community for quite some time now. He used to be known as the Long Sensation. He's got really reliable leaks, so this isn't the type of leak where you have to take it with a grain of salt. This is the type of leak where you can take it with a fistful of salt, because it's probably going to happen, and if it doesn't, then it likely means something was scrapped or whatever, but it's definitely at least like 99.9% confirmed that this is going to be the case. The leaks here are specifically that Black Ops Gulf War's campaign, this next COD in 2024, will have open world elements, it will have a fast travel system with vehicles, Raven Software will be developing the campaign, characters such as Adler will be returning, and there will be an October 2024 release for this game. So that's a lot right there. Like, those are pretty huge things, and let's get more in depth with them. So there's some very important things to specify here. In the actual article, they do go in depth to explain that this is not going to be like the Modern Warfare 3 open combat missions for a lot of reasons. First of all, those open combat missions were really poorly put together. They were quite rushed, so obviously it led to them not really being that exciting or that cinematic or anything like that, but it's a high chance this game is going to be able to make things more cinematic. And also, of course, Modern Warfare 3's open combat missions were utilizing the Warzone map as well as, the Verdansk, so they were just using existing Warzone maps, whereas apparently this open world map for this campaign is going to be completely built from the ground up, not using previous entries assets. Now, I don't 1000% believe this. Part of me feels like it's probably going to end up becoming a Warzone map like down the line, so maybe we'll get Verdansk coming back for COD 2024. They'll also be building this other map here for campaign, and then this campaign map will be used for Warzone later down the line. I feel like that's highly likely, but I could be completely wrong. Maybe it is going to be built specifically for campaign and not with Warzone in mind, and I hope that is the case because that'll give it the most originality and the most uniqueness that it could possibly have. It also says that chances are the whole game won't be this open world style. There will be apparently some linear missions in the game, just like what we're used to in Call of Duty, which I hope that's the case. I think best case scenario is like half of the game is the open world stuff and the other half is the more linear missions, assuming the actual open world stuff is really interesting and cool, because I feel like the linear missions is just such an iconic part of Call of Duty. That's what campaigns have always been, so you have to keep those intact. Hopefully there's enough of them to keep the game fresh and interesting all the way through. They seem to compare what this game is going to be like to Far Cry, and obviously if you've ever played any Far Cry games, you know what that entails, how you're kind of put in this open world, and there's a bunch of enemy factions that are after you, and you can come across bases, take out the bases, liberate them. Like, I'm not sure if this is going to actually be within this game itself, but it's entirely possible that those elements will be included as well. And there actually was previous rumors like months ago saying that this game is going to take heavy inspiration from the movie Black Hawk Down. If you've ever seen that, Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down, very great movie. But essentially what happens is there's this mission that this team goes on and they crash land in this war-torn country, and they're kind of like stranded there trying to escape, and they have to spend a long time being there in that country. That's probably what this campaign's going to be like. You're probably going to be on a mission with your team and you're going to crash land, you're going to have all these things go down, and maybe just like, with a lot of different Call of Duty campaigns, you're going to have another faction that you're going to be playing as. So for example, like Modern Warfare 3's campaign, not the recent one, but the OG one, you always had the missions where you're playing as Frost, but then you also had separate missions where you're playing as Yuri. Now they can do the same thing here where you have one player that you're playing as in those specific missions where you're crash landed and you have to play in the open world combat situations, but then you could also have other linear missions where you're playing as other characters. Maybe you can play as, like, they can split it up with, the OG team with Woods, Mason out on their own team, and then you can also have maybe like Adler and some other characters who are actually out in the field, dealing with that situation with the open world missions. I think that could be really interesting, but like I said, that's not confirmed. That's kind of just my speculation right there, and I think that could work out quite well. Now, here's the thing. Although I don't think this idea in and of itself is a bad thing, I am incredibly worried and, skeptical about how this could actually be executed, and also how it could affect the rest of the game and just Call of Duty franchise as a whole. First of all, one of the biggest negatives of this is the fact that we're going to have a lack of diverse locations, assuming majority of the campaign is within these open world missions, because it's just going to be in one country. You're not going to be going to a bunch of different countries in the game. It's probably just going to be this one country for the whole game, just like it is for a Far Cry game. And then maybe you'll have a couple different missions somewhere else. Now, like I said, if they're able to split it up half and half and they're able to have enough missions that are more linear that take place in other countries, then it could work and it could be just fine. But I am worried that like 90% of the game is just gonna be these open world missions, and then the game's just gonna lack that diverse feeling when it comes to the separate locations. It's one of the best parts of prior campaigns, is getting to go to all sorts of different locations, all sorts of different set pieces, and I feel like we're gonna lack that here, but I hope not. I'm also worried about future Call of Duty games doing this as well, because I think this could work for a Gulf War style game. I was mentioning when the whole leaks about this game being called Black Ops Gulf War, I was mentioning that I don't really see how that's going to work because Gulf War is set in one location. Well, kind of one location. There's a bunch of different countries involved, but they're all within the Middle East, or within like a central area. So you're going to lack those different locations that you could go like around the whole world. You're not going to have missions in Europe. You're not going to have missions in the United States. You're not going to have missions like all around the world like we have for most COD campaigns. So I think it could work just doing that for this game, but it says future games are also thinking about doing this, including COD 2025. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want this to become like the norm for Call of Duty, where every single year we get some new open world location, just like a Far Cry game. Like, I don't want that from a Call of Duty campaign. I think that's not what Call of Duty campaigns are all about. Could it work for one individual campaign? Sure. I think this could also work for a Vietnam Call of Duty game if they were to do that. That'd be interesting. But like I said, this does not work for every Call of Duty campaign out there, and I really do not want to see that in the future, at least too often. And I feel like this idea just further exemplifies Call of Duty's recent obsession with trying to be something that it's not. And let me make it clear, innovation is good in certain senses. I don't think you always need innovation necessarily, especially when I feel like they haven't perfected the actual COD formula that it's had for ages. Like, there hasn't really been a time where I felt like there's been a good stream of consistently perfect Call of Duty games back to back to back. There's been times where I felt like that for the most part, but there's always got to be, some issues here and there. So I don't necessarily think they have to do this. They could have just done a normal linear campaign and it would have just been fine, assuming it was a well-made campaign with a good story, good characters, good cinematic events, good gameplay. So I don't need all this innovation, and Call of Duty has been trying to do it so heavily over the past few years, especially when it comes to open world stuff. Look at zombies, look at Modern Warfare zombies, it's just all open world stuff. Obviously, Outbreak took up a big place of Cold War zombies as well, where like half of the game was open world zombies. And I'm really worried that's what's going to be happening with zombies in the future. I want more round-based content. I know a lot of people like the Outbreak stuff as well, but you have to have majority of the stuff being what the franchise originally came from. You got to stick to your roots. You got to stick to what made you popular in the first place. Innovate within those popular things, but don't try to do something completely different that shifts what the game was meant to be. And obviously, Call of Duty has kept true for the most part, like especially with like multiplayer having 6v6. It's still there. You still have your 6v6 game. You've had that for every single multiplayer since, COD 4 really, or even before that with, the OG games. But just like I don't think that removing 6v6 would be a good idea, I also don't think removing these linear missions from campaigns would be a good idea either. Now, like I said, the article makes it clear that there will still be some linear missions, but what if we end up getting the game and there's like 3 linear missions? That would be so disappointing, and the whole rest of the game is this Far Cry style thing. Like I said, it could work, it could be fun, but is it what Call of Duty is meant to be? Is it what Call of Duty has always been? And like I said, it goes on to the topics about all the other stuff with other modes where, yes, I love these different modes. I love Warzone, Ground War's fun. I think open world zombies could be interesting, but like, I really want more focus on the 6v6 stuff as well as round-based zombies, because that is what Call of Duty came from. And for a campaign, it really has always been about the linear style missions. So like I said, curious to see where this can go, but at the same time, incredibly worried. Since Modern Warfare 3 Zombies has only been this open world stuff, I really don't want to even see open world zombies in the next game. I feel like they should do 100% of their focus on round-based zombies next year. And the fact that we're getting Verdansk coming back to Warzone, and we're also going to be getting a completely original map made for campaign, you can't tell me that they're not going to utilize these things for zombies. You cannot tell me we're not going to end up getting another Outbreak mode on these maps. It's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen, and I'm really worried it's going to negatively impact the round-based content. I know a lot of people are saying it probably won't, but we have to wait and see. We really do, and I'm really worried. And I just feel like this open world stuff, like I said, it wasn't what Call of Duty was always about. Call of Duty was always about, smaller scale, but still very dense, detailed, interesting locations. That's what it's always been about. These set pieces were more, refined to themselves. If you have a giant world, chances are it's going to be less detailed. There might be less interesting things built within it, and instead you're going to see a bunch of copy and pasted like houses and stuff like that. Like we always see those in the Warzone maps where they have to repeat certain buildings around the map just to, because they don't want to make original buildings every single place they go. And I know sometimes campaign missions, the set pieces did that as well, but they didn't do it in a way that was so obvious. Each set piece really felt unique to each other. Same thing with the multiplayer maps, same things with zombies maps. But when you have this open world stuff, you're bound to put less detail into it, and you're bound to have more copy and pasted locations. So I've just never been a big fan of open world stuff, specifically for Call of Duty, because it's, like I said, just not where Call of Duty came from. Therefore, I don't want to see too much of it. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. How do you feel about these leaks? I would love to hear your thoughts. I will see you guys all in my next one. Peace out.